And welcome to From the Woods Today. I'm Renee Williams, and I'm an information specialist in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, and I'm here with my co-host, Billy Thomas.
Hi, Renee. I'm glad to be here with you. It's another exciting show, a beautiful day here in Kentucky, and we've got 4 great segments today.
Yes, we do. First of all, we are going to talk about wildlife damage in gardens. Now, if anyone's had a garden, you know that those little critters love the stuff that you plant as much as you do. So we have Dr. Matt Springer here to talk about that.
Yeah, so we've got a nice recorded video. Dr. Springer, but he is online. So if you've got some questions, be prepared to offer some questions to him after the video. And he's also got another one we're going to see a little later in the show on snake ID. So that was a popular segment before, so we brought Matt back on that. So we'll have that one as well. And then there's 2 other nice videos too.
There are. We have ever so popular Tree of the Week with Lori Thomas. She's going to talk about Buckeye, yellow and Ohio Buckeyes. And then we also wanted to let you know that tree seedlings are available from the Kentucky Division of Forestry. We found this out. So you might check with them to see what they have. I think it's a very limited supply and what you would have to do and that kind of thing. But call your local nursery to find out more about that if you're needing any tree seedlings at all. And then we'll also have Ashley Osborne on. She's going to share with us about a 4-H wildlife photography contest that's going on. So we have a lot of wildlife in this show, which is, different and also really neat. So if you all can just sit back and enjoy all of that, we appreciate you being on today. And always remember, if you have any questions at all, type them in the chat pod and we will get to them.
Excellent. All right, Renee, well, I'm going to go ahead and get the part started with Matt's wildlife video. So let's go ahead and pull that up.
Good morning. So today I'm going to discuss a few things. Good morning. So today I'm going to discuss a few strategies on how to deal with wildlife within your gardens and landscaping. It is that time of year that we're planting our gardens, getting ready and getting outside, trying to hopefully make some fresh fruits and vegetables for us later as the year goes on. Maybe some of you already have your garden going. I just got mine in the other day. So I'm anxious and hopefully, get some fresh food here in not too long. But however, whenever we're making food for ourselves, there's a lot of wildlife species within our state that also think it's food and may try to take advantage of all the hard work we're putting in. So I'm going to talk about a few tricks here quickly on how to deal with wildlife before they cause a problem, or if they are already causing a problem, how to hopefully alleviate that issue. So the first trick I want to talk about is something called habitat modification. And any of these tricks that we're gonna go over, the first thing you have to do is actually identify your culprit. Find out what wildlife species is causing that problem, and then do a little bit of research into what they like in terms of habitat and what they don't like, and that'll help provide you some information on how to potentially start dealing with them. First and foremost, habitat modification. What this is basically doing is taking an area that may be attracting or good for wildlife in their minds, and you want to turn it less hospitable, make it bad, make it uncomfortable, or make it more work for them. So sometimes there's good intentions, like in the background picture here where you're feeding birds, whether you have your bird feeder, you got seed out there, you got corn potentially. Well, there's a lot of animals that are attracted to that, and sometimes there's things like raccoons who take advantage of resources really well. They can cause more problems outside of that bird feeder. So simple tricks like removing a food source that isn't necessary, like a bird feeder, goes a long way. The other one we're talking about here is getting rid of brush piles, overgrown vegetation, anything that's around that garden or food source or place you have a wildlife issue. Get rid of it. You're basically taking the cover away from that wildlife that's there. So make it less hospitable. Okay. The second thing, if we can't get rid of them by doing that, the next step here is maybe using deterrent scare devices. There's a lot out there. Unfortunately, there's no silver bullets. You want to make sure you do a little research. What works on what? Their effectiveness varies by species that you're trying to keep away. Also, the thing to keep in mind is animals get habituated to these pretty quickly. So tricks like moving them around in the landscape, switching type of deterrent you're using can actually increase their effectiveness. And really, the best way to use these is to put them out when they're most needed. You don't want them out. You just planted and maybe you don't have any problems. You don't want to put them out now. Say your berries are about to get ripe. That's when you want to put them out. Keep those birds away as they're ripening because they know right when to get them. So if you have a tool in place to deter them from being there, it may buy you that time to take advantage of all your hard work. So some examples of some groups of wildlife we're talking about here and tools you can use. So things that we commonly see for birds, animals like cardinals and blackbirds and robins, going after your berries, strawberries, your blackberries, your blueberries, grapes if you have them. So the best tool for these guys is to exclude them using netting. And that's simply just cover up your fruits or other food, plants that you're trying to grow, keep them from getting into them to access them. It works pretty darn well. Unfortunately, you should check these nets on a regular basis, look for holes, fix them with zip ties or string, because if there's a hole, these guys will find a way in. Other tools that can work are things like fake predators, snakes, raptors. They'll provide a little bit of deterrent from keeping birds from coming around. We talk about rodents and smaller issues with mammals. These guys are tough. You can't really exclude them. They don't respond to deterrence very well. So a lot of times we have to resort to trapping them using things like snap traps, mouse traps, or rat traps. Concentrate on the areas where you see signs. So with moles, they really don't feed on vegetation, but they can cause unsightly issues. Voles with a V are basically mice that eat nothing but vegetation with no tail and smaller ears. They'll make things, holes and runways that you can see in your yard or in the garden. They're about golf ball size. That's where you want to trap. You want to trap them with snap traps, bait them with peanut butter and oats for a period of 3 days, for a period until you don't catch anything for 3 days. That's when you know you've caught out the colony. They are rodents. They reproduce fast, so you need to stay on top of them. Talking about slightly larger mammals or small mammals like raccoons, squirrels, rabbits, skunks, possums. Some of these can be excluded with fencing. Think rabbit fencing, which has small holes on the bottom and slightly larger on top. Only needs to be about 2 feet high. That'll also pretty much keep out possums and skunks. However, when you deal with raccoons and squirrels, unfortunately, unless you're using electric fencing, which is an option, but you need to know if it's safe to use and who else might be around your garden, you really are going to have a hard time with them. You may need to go to trapping or shooting them to really eliminate that problem. We'll talk about that at the end. Larger mammals, you think your deer, your elk, your bears, coyotes. Usually we recommend using an 8-foot fence. The deterrence will work a little bit. However, they get used to them pretty quickly. With bears, regular 8-foot fence isn't going to work. You need electric. And if you have a beehive or 2 or more, you need to have an electric fencing around if you're in bear territory. And that's pretty much all Southeast Kentucky now. If you need a map to know if you're in bear territory, if you go to Fish and Wildlife website, they have it. You can look at the bear zones, and that gives you a pretty good idea where there's bears consistently and not. Here's some examples of fencing, and we have publications at our website under either deer control or fencing for gardens, or underneath our Managing Deer webpage. It has pictures and explanations of these fences. Just want to give you an idea of some of the tools that are out there, whether that be just an 8-foot plastic fence or a couple different styles of electric fence that are quite effective. Talk quickly about regulations, just so you are familiar with them. First and foremost, whenever you may need to use poisons or rodenticides, make sure you're following those labels to a T. And a lot of times if you're doing gardening, you don't want to be putting rodenticides in your garden or anywhere there's food that can be consumed by humans. The time when things are growing is not the time to be using rodenticides in the garden. If you have barns or buildings that have mouse issues, that's where you would potentially use them. Just make sure you try other resources first. This is kind of a last ditch resource. Whenever you do trapping, you want to make sure you're targeting animals that are causing the issues and try your best to ensure that the non-target animals will not be caught. Or if you do catch them, they're in a live trap, like a cage trap, a have-a-heart, that you can let them go instead of using a kill trap like a body gripping conibear trap. And legally, under state regulation 150-170, if you're a resident landowner, you are allowed to protect your property or yourself against wildlife, and that includes wildlife damage. The only exception being federally protected species like migratory birds or things like raptors and also bats would be the ones that you'd not want to try to use this on, because it'd be very hard to identify to the species that could be federally protected. The catch here is you need, if you use it on deer, bear, turkey, or anything else that's reported to Fish and Wildlife to get a confirmation number like a hunter, you need to do the same thing if you apply this regulation to that. Here's some other resources, and if you have any questions, please reach out to us at the Department of Forestry Extension. Go to our webpage, our launch page here, so you can see we've got a bunch of links for a bunch of resources that would be very helpful in many different situations. We have a specific wildlife damage page where you can find things like those fencing, other control mechanisms for individual species to help you get along your way. It links usually to a extension publication as well. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My contact information is right there. Best way to do it is mattspringer@uky.edu for my email, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day.
Well, it sounds like there's all sorts of animals who love what we plant as much as we do. And so we do have Dr. Matt Springer on live with us. If you have any questions at all that you are dealing with gardens, or maybe something you've dealt with in the past for wildlife damage. But Dr. Springer, while people are putting things in the chat pod, I was wondering, is there a deterrent that you know of exactly, if you don't know exactly what animal you're dealing with, what's a good place to start?
So a great place to start is, trying to figure out what animal you're dealing with. Is there's options out there like trail cameras that are relatively cheap that will last you a long time. Obviously, most folks are growing gardens, year in, year out. So you're not looking at a one-time purchase of, $40 or $50, because you don't need to buy the high-end ones to use for this situation. You can look for tracks and use a field guide to identify tracks to let you know what animals are around. You can also use, if you find scat, we actually have a resource that if you contact us, we can send you that allows you to identify scat to species, which will also help you identify what's around. It may not be the actual thing causing the problem, but at least tells you what could be around. And that's where that camera really comes in handy. You just put it where the problem is. You'll get, some picture evidence of maybe a dog eating cucumber seeds, right, Billy?
I was going to say, I can be a testimony for you there, Matt. We put in a garden a few years ago, and I was getting all this damage. My plants were getting dug up, my seed was getting dug up, and I just couldn't figure it out. And got a trail cam put on it and found out it was my golden retriever. So it may not be wildlife, it may be domestic pets that are doing some of the damage.
Well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat pod. So Matt, it looks like you covered everything everyone needs to know. Is there anything else that you would like to tell our listeners about as far as wildlife gardening and damage?
Just expect to have a problem. Don't be surprised to have one, and go into it expecting it. That way, when something does pop up, it's not as much of a insult to yourself. Just take it as a compliment that you're growing such good food, and then go from there and try to solve it, and realize that most solutions are going to be temporary until you run into a different wildlife problem, because we have so many species that are very good at taking advantage of what we do, that usually it's go from one problem to another problem over hopefully an extended period of time, but sometimes they're back to back to back.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we have a comment from that says, thank you, Matt, for the information.
I was going to say, Renee, we are so fortunate. We've got such a great team of extension professionals here in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, and they're working hard to put together these segments for us. So I really appreciate all of them. And, if it's okay with you, we'll kind of go on to the very next one, the Tree of the Week.
That'll be great. So we have the Tree of the Week with Lori Thomas. She is going to introduce Buckeye, both yellow and Ohio Buckeye.
All right, so here's Lori's video.
Hi, I'm Laurie Thomas with the University of Kentucky Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, and I'm here with the Tree of the Week. Or I guess I should say the trees of the week, the Buckeyes. We will be discussing both the Ohio Buckeye and the yellow Buckeye, since both are found in Kentucky and have many similar characteristics. The Ohio Buckeye is also known as the American Buckeye, the fetid Buckeye, and the stinking Buckeye because of the disagreeable odor that comes from crushing its leaves. It is found in central Kentucky all the way to the Great Plains states. It typically grows 40 to 60 feet tall. Now, the yellow buckeye is also called the sweet buckeye or the big buckeye because it grows the largest of all of our buckeyes. It is found in the Appalachian Mountains from Pennsylvania to northern Georgia and into the Ohio Valley. It typically grows 60 to 75 feet tall, but can easily grow up to 100 feet in its natural habitat. Both buckeyes grow best in moist, well-drained soils with at least partial sunlight. Both trees are flowering right now, and their flowers are somewhat similar looking. The flowers grow in a 6 to 7 inch upright panicle, as you can see in the photo. The Ohio buckeye flowers tend to be a little more greenish yellow, and the yellow buckeye flowers tend to be more yellow. The flowers are pollinated by several types of bees, including bumblebees, mason bees, as well as the ruby-throated hummingbird. The leaves of both the buckeyes are already out right now, and you can see they're deciduous and they're oppositely arranged on the branch, as you can see in the yellow circle. The leaves are palmately compound, like you can see in the left image, and it's kind of like your hand as they radiate from that central point of that leaf stem. And there are usually 5 leaflets on both yellow buckeye and Ohio buckeye. The fall leaves of the Ohio buckeye are typically yellowish brown, whereas the yellow buckeye leaves tend to turn more of an orangish kind of pumpkin color. For both species, they change colors early in the fall and they drop quickly. The fruit of the buckeye is a leather-like husk that contains seeds. The seed husks can be a good way to tell one species from the other. The Ohio buckeye seed husk tends to be covered in short, prickly spines, as you can see in the picture, and the yellow buckeye seed husk is very smooth. The Ohio buckeye typically has 1 seed per husk, whereas the yellow buckeye can have 1 to 3 seeds per husk. The seeds of both are chestnut brown, smooth and shiny. These seeds are dispersed by gravity, water, and occasionally animals. This tree isn't a big favorite with wildlife like some of our other trees, but squirrels have been known to eat the seeds. The seeds do contain a glucoside that's considered poisonous to many of our livestock. The wood of buckeye is lightweight, it's soft, and it's easily workable. It tends to be light in color. It's used in crates, kind of under parts of furniture, woodenware, and the burls are often used as decorative items, as you can see in the photo. Since the wood was so lightweight, it was once used to make artificial limbs before the introduction of synthetic lightweight materials. Did you know the common name of buckeye comes from the resemblance to a buck's eye? And that Native Americans boiled the buckeyes to leach out asculin, the toxic substance in the seed, to make them edible for humans. And that people used to carry buckeyes in their pockets to protect them from rheumatism. And this last one I bet everybody already knows. The Ohio buckeye is the state tree of Ohio. The national champion Ohio buckeye is right here in Lexington, Kentucky. It's 86 feet tall, has a 57-foot crown spread, and 174 inches in circumference. Check out the American Forest Big Trees to find out more about national champions, or check out the Kentucky Division of Forestry to learn about our state champions. So hopefully you'll get an opportunity to get out in your neighborhood, a local park, or your woodland and enjoy the beautiful buckeyes.
So buckeye, you know, it's amazing that we've got these 2 trees that are so similar and kind of share like a border, geographic border. And I've even heard that they can hybridize a little bit with one another. So interesting tree for sure, to say the least.
Sounds like it. So now we're going to move on to our new snake ID. It may be something that you all are really interested in this week, and we do have Dr. Matt Springer on again to talk about that. We're going to be showing a video on copperheads. And so I think a lot of people out there are always concerned about whether or not there is a copperhead, if the snake they're seeing is a copperhead or not. And so he will be able to help you with that.
Yeah, no doubt. When we heard from Matt last time about snakes, there's only a handful of snakes that are poisonous, but we are going to be talking about one of them today. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up Matt's video on Snake ID.
So it's time for our snake idea of the week again. This is Matt Springer, Assistant Extension Professor of Wildlife Management within the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at UK. And I want to start off by highlighting our Kentucky snakes identification webpage here with the web address right there, kysnakes.ca.uky.edu. You can also Google search it. Just put in UKY snakes and this will pop up in your search engine. So it's a wonderful tool and talks all about snakes within Kentucky, gives a bunch of resources and help identifying your snake. For our challenge picture today, we have this one that was submitted by a person. And right off the bat, I'm sure everyone's going copperhead because it's got a pattern and it's in the woods and it's dark and brown. But we don't want to jump to conclusions, right? So first things first, we want to look right at the head. That kind of gives us our first idea of whether or not we need to be paying attention to the snake and considering it dangerous. If you don't know what any snake is, if you can't identify it as species, you should treat it like it could potentially be venomous no matter what. So you should not be going and picking it up unless you absolutely know what kind of snake it is, what species it is. Here, this snake right off the bat has a large head and a very fat body. It's kind of hard to tell completely because it's in that curled up position. But it also has a banding pattern with it, and there's a giveaway here. And those bands go all the way on to the sides. They don't stop about halfway down the side of the body. They complete all the way down to the belly. And they're narrower at the top and expand to the bottom. So with that, it's pointing to potentially a copperhead. There are other snakes that have bands, so we don't necessarily want to rule them out as well. But if you look, it's got that triangle shape. And one of the things here right off the bat with that triangle shape and that pattern, this snake is a pit viper and it is a copperhead for once. The giveaway here, I'm going to go back to that banding where it highlights that banding. One of the things we talk about is, I mentioned how it goes all the way to the belly. Well, that's important, but it also thickens as it goes, and it kind of gives this Hershey kiss look to it. And that's pretty much a dead giveaway for a copperhead when there's banding, is if you see a band and it widens out on the side of the body and kind of has that Hershey kiss look, like it's circled here, that's a pretty good giveaway for a copperhead, and you should be paying attention to it and treating it as such as a venomous snake. So here, for the snake this week, we do actually have a copperhead. And there's more information if you go to the website for our KY snakes on copperheads. As you can see, they're found throughout the entire state of Kentucky. They're a little less prevalent in the heart of the bluegrass. However, it's not necessarily uncommon to come across them. And you can see there's another great image of a copperhead and highlighting that Hershey kiss look on the side. And overall, I always want to end here. If always identify what snake you see or you may be encountering before you start dealing with them, whether that be picking them up and moving them out of the way, or leaving them be, which is probably the best advice, is just let them be. Remember, they're more scared of you than you are of them in almost all cases. If you don't want them around your house or dwelling, reduce those shrubbery areas around your house, your garden. Just think like most of these snakes are looking for food or cover. So if you get rid of that cover, or in many of these cases, the food they're looking for are rodents or birds or bird eggs, that cover also is going to attract those things. So if you get rid of both of those, then the snakes are less likely to be around your house or your dwellings. Keep your grass mowed short. Snakes do have predators. A lot of them are raptors. So if they are easily seen out in the open and have nowhere to hide, they feel very vulnerable and like to avoid those areas. So if you keep very short grass, that helps promote that deterrent. Remember, there's lots of positive benefits of having them around. Rodent control is one of them. So we want to make sure that we're not just killing snakes for the sake of I don't like snakes. We want to have them around their key elements in any ecosystem. So keep that in mind. And again, I'm going to end on the fact that we have this great resource, the snake website. Please use it. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself with my information here at the bottom of this slide. Or contact our forestry extension office and they can put you in touch with me. All right, take care.
Well, we do have Dr. Matt Springer on, as you all know, and if you have any questions about snakes, they go ahead and type them in the chat pod, and it looks like we already have one. So someone says, I hike daily on deer trails in the woods and never see snakes. I assume that copperheads are present. Is it possible that they sense my presence and get out of the way, or do I need to be concerned about stepping on one?
So, Kay, yes, it is possible they get out of the way. It's also possible that they don't even move and just hope that you walk right by. Several times I've been walking in the woods in a similar situation. I've actually stepped over a rattlesnake and never moved, never made a peep, never rattled, didn't do anything. It was just hoping that I'd keep on going. There's always a possibility of stepping on one. And if you do a lot of hiking in areas that you are concerned about, being around copperheads or rattlesnakes, snake gaiters are relatively inexpensive, especially if you use them quite frequently. When you think about if you hike a lot, they're $40 to have them on, and they can give you a peace of mind to make it that if you do step on one, the worst case scenario probably won't happen, and you'll be protected from it.
So that's the only question I see so far. So there might be more coming in, but Dr. Springer, if you can let people know, I think a lot of the times they're worried about snakes being venomous. And is there something that, because I know a lot of people are just scared when they see a snake, is there something that you can train people to look right away? And I think you mentioned this in your video. What causes them to be able to know whether it's venomous or not? Is there something that people can go, okay, I don't need to be as scared of that snake?
Vicky, I'll get that. I see your question came in.
Oh, sorry.
So in terms of the best thing to look at right away is if you can see the head of the snake, that's a pretty good giveaway, and the body shape for Kentucky. All of our venomous snakes are pit vipers, so they have that triangle-esque head, and they usually have a very fat body. It's a fatter body relative to most of the snakes. Now, if you come across a snake that is maybe slightly malnourished, it may be skinnier or smaller, younger, they won't have that distinct large body frame yet. But start with the head, look at the body. You can then look at the patterns. Obviously, rattlesnakes have a rattle on their tail. Sometimes that's not visible. But if you do come across a snake and you're unsure, just leave them be and walk around them. They won't chase you. So it's and if you are concerned, and I'll get to snake gaiters here in a second, they're basically you could purchase those, like I mentioned. And what they are is basically shin guards, thinking soccer, right? They run from your boot up to about your knee, which covers the, if a snake was on the ground and it would strike at you, if you stepped on it, that's about as high as it can reach on your body. So if they hit that gaiter, it's like hitting a plate and their fangs can't penetrate it. So it prevents them from biting you. They'll bite that hard outside shell of that snake gaiter. So their snake boots are basically boots with gaiters that run up to your calf. They have snake chaps or other versions of that. And it's basically just wearing a piece of equipment or clothing that doesn't allow those fangs to penetrate to your skin. So I see one more question from Suzanne about the slitted eyes on venomous snakes versus round eyes on non-venomous. And with all of our invasives, is that still true? So currently we actually don't have any invasive snakes. Now, one of the things that we do see quite a bit are escape pets will pop up where people send in pictures of, a lot of times it's ball pythons, which are a really common pet snake, pretty much harmless, not good to let go, obviously, but they have a pretty strong pattern, which is one of the reasons they're appealing for the pet trade. But they also have, because of the python situation, they have a triangle-esque head. So people will get concerned when they see them. So that one, you'd need a little bit more experience identifying snakes. But once again, if you see it, you can probably get around it and get away from it rather than handling it. So the eye part is true right now for our venomous snakes, where because our venomous snakes are the pit vipers, they have that cat-like eye. And all of our non-venomous snakes have those round pupils. So that holds true, Suzanne.
There was also another question of, if someone does get bit, how long can it be before they seek medical attention?
So with our snakes that you'd have that question for, our four venomous snakes in Kentucky, it really kind of depends. There's been numbers thrown out that half the bites are actually dry bites where they don't even insert venom at all. Remember that venom, it takes a lot to make. And these guys are using it to usually catch their prey. So they'll bite a mouse and it'll run off and they'll track it when it dies. So if they use it defending themselves, that's an energetic cost for them to remake it. So they're not going to use it unless they feel like they absolutely have to. There's more that goes into it, including the size of the snake, where the bite is, how much venom they may have put in. So if you get bit on your hand, is that different than getting bit on your foot, or say get bit closer to your head or your chest? All that plays a role. Thankfully, the majority of our venomous snakes, this is a relative statement. Usually you have a significant amount of time to get medical attention. And sometimes, there are folks that are a little more experienced with snakes that will get bit and may not even seek medical attention unless things go south. So I had a professor in my undergrad who got bit by a copperhead, and basically because he was a herpetologist, he knew what to monitor and never went and sought medical attention. His hand blew up enormously, but he never felt the need that he need to go to seek medical help. That all depends. He was an adult in good health and didn't have an allergic reaction. So there's a lot that can go into it. I would say that if you do get bit, you should go get medical attention, at least get checked out, because the majority of us are not comfortable. If I got bit, I'd be going to the hospital too. So it's not a straightforward answer. Just know that you should have time, and the best thing you could do is remain calm and try to get out. Don't overreact, because the more your blood circulates it, the more problems you could have. So just stay calm and get out of the woods and seek medical help as soon as possible.
That's some good guidance there, Dr. Springer. We certainly appreciate it. Appreciate your efforts with this stuff, these video segments, and helping everybody kind of better understand wildlife and how we can live with it, and some of the challenges we have. Certainly, they're an important part of our woodlands here in Kentucky.
I'm very happy to be here and hopefully put a slightly better face on some of those animals.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's always important for us to remember that the roles that they play and how they help us out in a lot of ways. So, speaking of wildlife, Renee, we've got another segment coming up talking about wildlife here in Kentucky. Miss Ashley Osborne, who is a 4-H specialist here at the department or at the University of Kentucky. She is doing a lot of different programs for youth that's going on right now, especially in these times of social distancing. And this one is on a 4-H wildlife photography contest. So if okay with you, Renee, I'll go ahead and share Ashley's video.
Yeah, that would be great.
Hi, I'm Ashley Osborne, 4-H Extension Specialist at the University of Kentucky in the College of Agriculture, Food, and Environment. Today I want to tell you about a new photo contest that we have taking place at Kentucky 4-H. This photo contest is all about wildlife. We have 5 categories. Those categories are wildlife in action, signs of wildlife like tracks, feathers, nests. The 3rd category, all about birds. The 4th category, mammals. And then the 5th category is reptiles and amphibians. And so any 4-H member can participate. 4-H members must be between the ages of 9 and 19. You're allowed 2 entries per category. And you can submit your entries to me at my email address, which is ashley.osborne@uky.edu, and all submissions and entries are due by May 11th. And so we really encourage you to go outside in your backyard, in your neighborhood, and take some pictures of wildlife and send those in. I do have a few reminders for our 4-H members. So anytime you go on an outdoor adventure, remember to always ask your parent or guardian's permission. And when taking photos of wildlife, please keep a safe distance between you and the animal. We want to keep you safe, and we want to keep the animals safe too. So don't attempt to feed animals or touch them or disturb them in any way. Just take the photograph from a safe distance. So we really hope that you will participate in the 4-H Wildlife Photo Contest. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or contact your county 4-H agent.
All right, thank you, Ashley. Ashley oversees the 4-H natural resources programming here in the state, and she works closely with our department on a lot of efforts. So I really appreciate what she does as far as engaging the youth and woodland and wildlife related stuff. So Ashley, thank you for that. If any of our viewers have children or grandchildren or in that kind of that 9 to 18 range, please encourage them to participate in this contest.
Definitely. And we're always looking for ideas for the show. And so if anybody has any show ideas, there is a short survey that you can fill out at www.fromthewoodstoday.com. And you can ask questions there. You can even submit a photo there if you would like of something that's going on and maybe some wildlife damage that you have or a snake you found. Take a picture of those and you can send those to us. Or if you just have an idea for the show, we're eager to hear from you to find out what exactly it is that you may be seeing or need to know about, and we will try to address that on one of these shows.
Yes, and I would also encourage folks, if you've missed any of the previous shows, they are all recorded on FromTheWoodsToday.com, and please share it with others. There's a lot of folks out there that may find these shows and topics of interest, so please help us spread the word. And as Renee said, if there's anything we can do to help you all from a woodland and wildlife standpoint here in Kentucky, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we want to be here to serve you, and we appreciate all you do to try to provide wildlife and woodland habitat here across Kentucky, because most of the woodlands, Renee, are owned by private families, you know, the people we work with on a regular basis. So.
Exactly. Also on there, on that survey, if you want to click and give us your email address, we will put you in our constant contact reminder so that every week you'll get a reminder about the show, and so that you'll know what our topics are for that coming week.
Yeah. So I would encourage you to join us next week. We've got a great show. We're going to be talking about some wildflowers, and we have Mr. Eric Comley, who is a 4-H County agent in Garrett County, Kentucky, and he's been doing this series of videos, Renee, and I'm really excited to see his wildflower video next week. So please make sure you join us, and we'll have some other segments as well. And again, Renee, thanks to you and the whole team for all the work in putting this show together.
We greatly appreciate all of you too joining us each week. So until then, until next week, have a great week.
See you next week.